morning and welcome to Today in LA. My name's Mike Amos. Hope you're doing well this morning on a Wednesday, and we're moving right along toward college football, July the 11th. And hey, let me tell you, less than a month they will be on the practice field getting ready to go with college football all over this country. Of course, we got a great show for you today. Troy King, who has very good candidate for Attorney General, will be our guest later on our show, and we look forward to seeing him. Of course, we are looking at quite a list of political people that will be coming on our show before Tuesday. Of course, Tuesday is the runoff election, and we'll be looking forward to that as we head down the stretch. And of course, the ballots. I saw a sample ballot yesterday, and we'll be talking about that. We're going to take a short break. We'll bring Troy King in here in just a few moments, candidate for Attorney General of the state of Alabama. We'll be right back.
At the Piggly Wiggly, we proudly support our local farmers and bring you the best they have to offer, all at cost plus 10%. When you shop local, you reinvest in your community. Remember, buy local, shop local. Piggly Wiggly, local since forever.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Here at Town & Country, we are proud to be an American.
We've had you covered on the inside since 2005, and with our addition of Southern Grill and Patio, we now have you covered on the outside. Come see our great selection, where we make sure grilling and relaxing go hand in hand.
Life is hectic enough without worrying if your lights will stay on or if there's hot water for your child's bath. So count on natural gas to keep the energy flowing, even when the weather is unpredictable. Natural gas is always there to keep your home warm, showers hot, and food cooked to perfection. That's why America has relied on safe and affordable natural gas for more than 150 years. And we will be here for you and future generations too. You can count on natural gas from Southeast Alabama Gas District.
Come see us at Don Walker Western Wear. From boots, jeans, and jackets to shirts, hats, and belts, we're your headquarters for Western wear for the entire family. With the largest selection of jeans in town, we carry famous brands like Wrangler, Levi, Carhartt, Ariat, and Cinch. We've also got plenty of styles of boots to choose from, including Justin, Lucchese, Ariat, Tony Lama, Red Wing, Dan Post, and Corral. So come on into Don Walker Western Wear, located on Highway 231 in Troy.
A personal touch, a high level of trust. Whether it's checking and savings accounts, personal or business loans, or our local friendly service. That's what Troy Bank and Trust customers expect. But now we offer more. Free identity theft protection for our new and existing customers, protecting your family's time, money, and good name from identity theft. Because protecting your identity is now a big part of our...
Back to our show, ladies and gentlemen, and with us this morning, Troy King, who's the candidate for Attorney General of the state of Alabama. Good to see you, my friend.
Oh, it's great to be here.
I tell you, I go pretty far back with you. Of course, I've spent 28, 30 years in state government for a long time, and gosh, you know, you're a young man, but you've been around.
Well, we go back further than you think, because I used to watch you on TV before we knew each other.
Me and Bud,
yes.
The Bud Naaman Show.
That's right.
That's right.
That's
we had a good time, and of course, you're originally from Elba, and you went to Troy.
Went to Troy. This is like a homecoming for me.
Yeah.
I don't get back home into the Wiregrass as much as I would like, but I love coming home, and it's great to be back in Troy. It's good to be back in Elba. I was in Elba just the other night for the 4th of July. Had a great time down there. It's good to see a lot of home folks.
Had a big fireworks.
It was good. It was great. I didn't even know they were doing it. It was great. We had a wonderful time.
Yeah. Of course, you're an attorney, and let's go back. This is your life, Troy King, laid back television at very best. Now, I would like to tell you this, Troy. You're on Facebook across the world.
We are.
live on Facebook right here on Troy Cable Channel 2, and we're excited about it. And if you want to call some friends out in California or wherever, they're not up yet, but
maybe they'll catch it on
but we are live, exactly. In fact, we'll run this show again today at 1:30, and of course we've been on there for quite some time now with Today in LA, and
how's it taken so long for me to get here?
I don't know, man. I don't know, but you know, you've always been welcome. You know, one of my very good friends is a state senator from Elba, very distinguished state senator. What a career he's had, Jimmy Holly. What a career he's had.
Oh, Jimmy's been a mentor to me through my career. Of course, I've known Jimmy since before I knew that I knew him. He came to the hospital when I was born, so
we probably put a campaign a sticker on your crib.
Probably, but Jimmy is just, you know, he loves our state as much as anybody that I know, and has done more for our state than most people I know.
No question about it. And before we get going this morning, I'll tell you a brief story. You know, with the 91-92 flood in Elba, I was asked by Don Hines, the director of ADECA, to go to Elba to be to work with as liaison with the state, between the state and the city and the federal government. So I was right on involved with that from the very beginning. But people don't realize what Jimmy Holly did for his community. I mean, he didn't go after a little, he didn't go after a lot. He went after everything he could get from the federal government. And Buddy, Elba, even though that was a disaster that we don't want to ever think about ever happening again, Jimmy Holly went overboard getting federal funds to assist Elba.
He got it all.
He said, Elba, hey, what are you going to do for Elba?
That's right. That's right. He does a great job.
He's got to be sort of an idol in a way, isn't he?
Oh,
you're
he
a
is.
hero.
Oh, sure.
For you, a young politician. Can I ask you how old you are?
49.
49 already. You look like you're 29.
Oh, get out of here.
But of course, people like Jimmy Holly and the late great politician of all, Jim Folsom.
Right.
And of course, Jim Jr. You're friends with Jim Jr. You've probably been friends with him a long time, haven't you?
I've known him a long, long time. I've known him since he was governor.
Yeah, no question, and a very good politician.
Well, and he's got great connections to Elba.
Yeah, no question. In fact, of course, Big Jim went through Elba years and years ago. My dad used to eat breakfast right there in front of the downtown Elba, right there in front of the trucking company, Dorsey, with Judge Paul.
Right.
And
Paul.
Did you ever get, before he died, did you ever get a chance to sit down and talk with him much?
Well, I did. We went to First Baptist together. Of course, I was little back then.
But he was a legend too, wasn't he?
He was. He set.
They call him Ears Paul. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And he had a son, Bryce, that went to Troy. I remember Bryce. And
he was sheriff for a while. Worked for the Sheriff's Association.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of good politicians have come out of the Elba area, haven't they?
They have. They have. And of course, Ruby Folsom, Steve Flowers. I was on Steve Flowers' show. And I told this story, and now Steve has stolen it. He told me he's going to put it in his new book. But I told him that back in 1986, I was campaigning for Guy Hunt in Elba.
Bring that coffee when you can. It's laid back.
That's great. So we were. I was out putting up Guy Hunt signs in Elba, and this huge brown station wagon came kind of weaving down the road, pulled off kind of halfway on the road, halfway off the road. And Ms. Ruby Folsom got out, and she started pulling somebody else's signs off the stakes. Thank you. You want some more?
No, come on over here. Come on. Well, this is laid-back television at its very best across the world on Today in L.A. You know what L.A. means, don't you?
Lower Alabama.
I just want to make sure you do that.
I'm from there, sir.
This guy looks like a TV star. Gosh, where did he come from?
Well, he is now.
Nowhere.
Now this is Hayden Pugh, who's with my campaign, and now that he's served coffee on TV on worldwide TV, he's now famous.
That's right. Where's Hayden from? Haleyville,
home
Alabama.
of 911.
Hey, are you serious?
Do you know that's where 911 started?
I was wondering about that.
If you were wondering, 911 started in Haleyville, Alabama. In fact, they still have the original 911 phone in a museum there.
Yeah, that's something I did not realize that.
Yes, sir.
And of course, let me tell you something else about Haleyville. The stadium there is named after Herman Bubba Scott. Is he shaking his head?
He's saying yes.
And
thumbs up.
Now let me stun him again. And another guy named Hawkeye Hicks. You know who I'm talking about? He was a star football player at Troy. Both of them played at Troy. Did you know that? Years ago.
How about that?
That's right.
I didn't know that.
Snake Eye Hicks. Snake Eye Hicks and the great Herman Bubba Scott. Did you ever know Bubba Scott?
I did not.
Boy, he was a great guy. And of course, he headed up the Alabama Sports High School Athletic Association for a long time. But continue telling us about
So anyway, so Miss Folsom pulls off the road and she starts pulling other people's signs off their stakes and throwing the signs over in the grass, and then she was putting George Wallace Jr. signs on the stakes. And she came over, she said, "What are you boys doing?" And I said, "Well, we're just putting out some Guy Hunt signs, but I don't think you're really allowed to pull somebody else's signs off their stakes and put new signs on them." And she said, "Lord, honey, when you get to be my age, you can't put new stakes in the ground. This is what you have to do."
No question. And of course, Jim was a legend, and Steve loves to tell Jim Folsom stories, growing up. But, let me just say this about Jim Folsom. You can say anything you want to about him, but, buddy, when it came to building roads, no governor ever in the history had built more roads than Big Jim Folsom, especially in Coleman County.
That's right. He paved half the county.
No question about it. And now you came in under Guy Hunt.
Well, I was in college. I was at Troy from '86 to '90, and I met Guy Hunt when I was in college. And then at the end, I was the head of the college Republicans.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the end of my time in college, it was an election year. '90 was an election year, and Guy Hunt, Charlie Graddick, Spencer Backus, who was running against Jimmy Evans, they all came down and spoke at Troy to the college Republicans. And then Spencer Backus called and said, "I need somebody who can travel around with me. Would you take that job?" Well, I was on my way to law school.
Yeah.
And I went and saw Jack Hawkins, and he had just gotten to Troy. It was his first year. And I said, "I'm trying to decide what to do. I've been accepted to law school, but I've been asked to come and do this." And Jack pulled out this tray, and he had this piece of paper taped there. And it said, "If it feels good, don't do it, Ronald Reagan." And he said, "I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I think you should go home and think about that."
Yeah.
So I called him the next day, and I said, "Well, I thought about what your paper says." And he said, "Well, good. So you're going to law school?" I said, "No, I've decided it feels good, and I'm going to do it." And I guess the rest is history.
Well, and I'll tell you this, and I was working with ADECA for all those years, and the Guy Hunt administration was very successful. He came in, in different circumstances.
Baxley Graddick.
got in a fight. They were
Graddick won.
That's right.
They took it away and they gave it to Baxley.
That's right.
And then Guy Hunt won.
And of course, Baxley was a legend and still is with all the attorneys around the country.
He's a great friend of mine.
I know it. Have you ever seen a guy that is loved and admired as much as he is with attorneys across the country?
He's very, very well regarded.
These old Calhoun and Falk would fight over him.
He's a great guy. I'll tell you. I don't know how much time we have before you have.
We got plenty of time.
I'll tell you a great Guy Hunt story. When they rededicated the rest area in Coleman, they named it for Guy Hunt. And Governor Hunt called. We'd gotten to be friends as he got kind of in his later years. He had cancer. He was sick. Yeah. And we just got to be good friends. I'll tell you how we got to be friends. I was working for Fob James, and Governor Hunt was trying to get appointed as a governor's counselor, which was a sort of a pension that was set up for governors, for Governor Wallace or Governor Folsom. So he would come to the Capitol and he would just sit. and they leave him in the hallway. And I felt bad that he was sitting in the hallway, and so I'd go invite him to come in my office. So we got to be friends. So when they rededicated the rest,
you were what was your title at that time?
I was the deputy legal advisor for Governor James.
Yeah, I got you.
So Governor Hunt called and he said, "Would you speak when we rededicate the rest area?" So I said, well, "I'd be honored to do that." So we get there, and Governor Hunt says, "I feel like I should."
Hold on one second. We'll get this out of the way here a second. Good morning. You're on Today in L.A. How you doing?
Hey, morning.
Mike Amos call in. Mike, we've got Troy King on the line, right here in our studios this morning, and of course a candidate for Attorney General of the state of Alabama. You know Troy King, don't you?
Yeah, I've definitely known about Troy King for a long time. It's nice talking to you this morning. I'm Big Mike's son, Mike Jr.
Calling in from Birmingham.
Yeah, thank you for calling.
Vestavia, Alabama. He claims to be right on the Vestavia Mountain Brook line. I don't know if that's good or bad. He got 1 foot. I mean, his back lot is about a foot away from Mountain Brook. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that is right. It's kind of strange how it kind of got annexed. Cahaba Heights and Liberty Park are kind of right next to Mountain Brook Hospital.
Yeah. Well, we're right in the middle of a story, so listen in. We've got Troy King, and this is your life, Troy King, this morning.
Well,
we'll let everybody know exactly where you came from, and I've watched your career. But talk about Guy Hunt.
Anyway, so Governor Hunt said, "I want to tell you how the rest area got where it is." He said, "I was governor, and Perry Hand was the highway director." You remember Perry? He was Secretary of State. He said, Perry called me one day and he said, "Governor, we're going to build a rest area between Birmingham and Tennessee, and since that's your home part of the state, we thought you might like to go with us to pick out where to build it." So Governor Hunt said, we picked a day, we walked out of the Capitol, and he said, Perry was with me, and there was this whole line of black cars in the street. And I said, "Perry, who are all these people?" And he said, "Well, these are all the surveyors and condemnation and acquisition and all the people we got to have to figure out where we can build a rest area." And Governor Hunt said, I said, "Perry, we don't need all these people. Tell these people to go back to work." And Perry said, "Well, this is their job, Governor. They're at work." And he said, No, I'm not going up there with all these cars. Tell them to go back to do something else." And Perry said, "Well, Governor, how are we going to? We can't do this without them. We don't have a surveyor. We don't have a condemnation. We don't have a right-of-way guy. We don't have anybody. We can't just go up there." And he said, "Perry, I'm telling you, tell those people to go back to work." So Governor Hunt said, Perry and I got in the car, and he said Perry was mad as could be, and he had his arms crossed. He was staring out the window. And he said, finally, he turned and he said, "Well, I hope you're happy. How in the world do you think we're going to figure out where to build a rest area if we don't have any of the experts with us?" And Governor Hunt said, I looked at him and I said, "Well, I'll tell you exactly how we're going to decide. We're going to get in the car, we're going to drive until I need to go to the bathroom, and we're going to stop and build a rest area." And Guy Hunt said, "This is how far my bladder lasted from Montgomery north." Is that a great story?
You're right, a great story. But, of course, you worked for Bob James, and of course, that was quite an election when Bob James was elected governor. And but was it the first time or the second time? You worked with him during his second.
Only governor to be elected as a Democrat and a Republican.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that something?
It's something. But, people said, "Oh, Guy Hunt, this guy, he didn't have any experience." But you know what? He hired good people.
He had one of the best cabinets.
Real good people, and exactly. And the reason I know that is because I work with them. I work with these guys, and they probably got more done than any governor in a long time.
Well, it didn't. It never hurts to be underestimated.
Yeah.
And people underestimated Guy Hunt.
Yeah. Mike, mine and your friend in Birmingham was a big man during the Guy Hunt administration.
Which friend was that? We got a lot of friends in Birmingham.
Well, Edgar Weldon.
Edgar Weldon, exactly.
Edgar Weldon, for one.
Edgar Weldon, exactly who I was going to talk about. And Edgar and I are good friends, but he knew he did it the class way. He brought in people that knew what they were doing, and they were effective, you know.
They had a huge reunion at the Sports Hall of Fame in Birmingham that Edgar hosted not too long ago, and it was the anniversary of the inauguration.
Sure.
And they had all of the old Guy Hunt folks there.
I would have loved to have been there.
I'll tell you somebody else from those days that I bet you'll remember his name. Do you remember Jim Martin from Gadsden?
Oh, very well.
Elected in the Goldwater Sweeps.
He's the Republican of all Republicans.
Ran against Lurleen.
He ran against a bunch of them, didn't he?
Lurleen Wallace in 1968.
And of course, he was very good friends with Tom Norman here from Goshen right out here. Jimmy Norman's got the station out here on the bypass. He was a strong supporter of him.
Well, he was a congressman.
Yeah.
And I was in Gadsden just a couple of nights ago, and of course we lost Congressman Martin, or Commissioner Martin, I always called him. He was conservation commissioner under
great man, though.
Governor James.
Yeah.
But he was a great man, and his wife Pat was there, and it was so good to get to see her. You talk about the roots of the Republican Party. Jim Martin dug the hole the seeds went in.
That's right.
And planted the tree.
So when I called him Mr. Republican, that was a good name for him.
Yeah, he was elected to Congress in the Goldwater Sweeps, and then he ran against Lurleen Wallace for governor in 1966. And I was in the Birmingham News several years ago, and one of the reporters said, "I want to show you something." He said, "I always show this to Republicans who come in," and he had a newspaper ad from 1966, and it was Congressman Martin's ad running for governor against Lurleen Wallace, and the ad said, "A woman's place is at home. Vote Jim Martin for governor." Is that crazy?
Would he have done it? Would he done it with Kay Ivey? Would you reckon he said the same thing?
He'd be destroyed today.
I know,
but those were different times.
No question about it. You know, like I said, I go back in government pretty good ways, and I was looking at the situation now, and to me, very qualified. I worked with Kay Ivey for years. She came in under the Folsom administration, if you remember. She worked with ADO and recruited industry, and at that time, ADO was being run by Bob's cousin. And I can't remember, but what I'm saying, Kay got her start under Bob James. You know, like a lot of people, and you got your start under who? Who would you say?
Well, when I was in college, my first job ever in government was with Governor Hunt. I worked at the unemployment office during summer break.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what he did, wasn't it?
But the first full-time job, real job, was Governor James, one of his lawyers, when he took office in '95.
Yeah.
And learned a tremendous amount. And there were a lot of Wiregrass guys who were there at the time. Jimmy Baker, who's from down here. Grover Jacobs, who's from down here. Lots and lots and lots of Wiregrass folks had a hand in that administration.
Oh, yeah.
James Sasser from Ozark.
Oh yeah, no question about it. And and you could, you look at these different administrations, and all of them had different people that were strong in those circles. And now, of course, Troy King, who grew up right here in Coffee County, Alabama, and you don't even know where S.C. Boswell's store was located.
I certainly do. I certainly do.
And of course, I remember that was right on the line, and of course, Sam, his brother, and I were good friends, and in fact, we talked on the phone just recently, and you have always had a great reputation of standing by your things that mean a lot to you. Who would you say, probably more than any one person, has had more to do with your political career, and people that you have admired or have had been a good role model with you growing in your political?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, my dad taught me things like you need to have principles and you need to stand by them. no matter what. That's an important. My dad wasn't political, but it doesn't really matter. That's a life lesson that applies doubly in politics. You know, I get so tired of politicians that waffle, and you can't depend on what they're going to say, and it depends on which day it is as to what they believe. The Attorney General is a good example of that. The Attorney General was appointed by Don Siegelman.
That's right.
He's been a Democrat his whole career.
Yeah.
He ran as a Democrat. He was on the ballot with folks like Nancy Pelosi. He had an Obama bumper sticker on his car. And now he's trying to convince people that he's a Republican.
Yeah.
He's not a Republican. He ought to listen to my dad. Get some principles and stick to them.
Is your dad still living?
No, we lost my dad.
Yeah.
And
now, when did you think that you would want to go into politics? Did you even hold any offices at Elba High School?
I'll tell you, it was before Elba High School.
Yeah.
When I was 10 years old, 1979, I'll never forget, my dad sold real estate in Elba. And I'll never forget it. My dad sat everybody down at the kitchen table one day. Had to be the hardest conversation my dad ever had with us. Inflation was high, interest rates were high, and if you were in real estate in Elba, you really needed a good economy because nobody moved to Elba.
Not a lot of building going on.
You needed people to want to swap houses.
But there are some beautiful areas in Elba, though.
There sure are. It's one of my favorite places.
Yeah.
And my dad sat everybody down at the kitchen table and he said, look, there's just no money. Things that we've always done, eating out, going on vacation, we can't do those things. So I looked at my dad and I said, well, whose fault is that? And he said, well, whose fault is what? I said, well, whose fault is it that we can't go and do those things? He said, well, it's the economy. I guess it's the president. That's who's in charge of the economy. And I said, well, how do you get a new one?
Yeah.
And he said, how do you get a new what? I said, how do you get a new president? He said, well, I guess we go vote for the other guy. So I sat down, I wrote a letter and mailed it off to Montgomery. And soon this little box came in the mail, and it was full of the other guy's brochures. And the other guy was named Ronald Reagan. That's somebody else who affected me a lot in politics. But I took my little box of brochures and started going door to door in Elba. Nobody told me everybody in Elba was a Democrat.
Yeah.
So I would knock on the door.
You're right, a huge Democratic.
That's exactly right. I would knock on the door, and they would answer the door, and I'd say, I'm Troy King. Would you take this brochure and vote for Ronald Reagan so I can have a vacation next year? I knew.
How old were you when you
10?
10 years old.
And I knew when I was 10 that if there were people who got to be in places like Washington or Montgomery, and they got to make decisions that affected little boys and little girls in places like Elba, in ways that were important to me. I mean, that wasn't a big deal that we couldn't go out to eat at the Dairy Queen or we couldn't go on vacation. But it was a big deal at the time. Yeah. And I just knew then, if people get to go do that, I wanted to be one of them. And I've gotten to live my dream.
And then, of course, on into high school, were you a politician in high school? Did you run for office in high school?
No, I was a politician in that I was campaigning for Republicans like Guy Hunt. Guy Hunt and Aiden.
And then, so when you got to Troy, what was your ambitions at that time?
Well, when I knew I wanted to be in government, and I knew that in order to do that, I needed to go to law school. I never really even thought about being anything else. And came to Troy to get a degree that would prepare me for law school, so I majored in English and history. Got to be able to write.
Exactly.
And had a great time at Troy. I was ahead of the college Republicans all the years I was here.
So really, you really got real involved in politics once you got to Troy, then, didn't you?
I did.
Did Ralph Adams have any? Was he here in any of your time?
He was here the first of my time. He retired while I was there.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hawkins came in while I was there. And it's funny. So Jack Hawkins had this huge assembly when he got appointed.
Yeah.
And he said, I have an open door, and if there's any students that want to come by and meet me, the door's open, come by. Well, I'm probably the only student who thought that he really meant it. So I went by.
That's right, yeah.
And this is the truth. I can testify. It's the truth. He had an open door. I went in, sat down. We just
and he
became,
knew you for the rest of the time, didn't he?
We became instant friends.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll never forget, there was a strike down here, and Jesse Jackson came and spoke at Smith Hall at the theater.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hawkins called me, and he said, I bet you're not planning to come hear Jesse Jackson. And I said, no, I'm not. And he said, I want you to come hear him. You don't need to only go listen to people you agree with. So I did. And what I learned from Jesse Jackson that night that I have never, ever forgotten is after Jesse Jackson got through having a rally, they got Kentucky Fried Chicken buckets, and they passed them through the room.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. He said, I don't care if you have $1 or $5 or $100 or $10,000. I want you to put something in the bucket. Because when you put something in the bucket, you have taken ownership of a piece of what I'm doing. And that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
That's a very good political principle.
Yeah.
That when people give and invest and believe in you and stand with you, whether they're giving you their reputation or a little bit of money or a lot of money, they become an owner in what you're doing. And there's an important responsibility that comes with that, to not let them down, to not disappoint them, to not ever be unworthy of their trust. And I've just never forgotten that, and I've tried to conduct my life in politics in a way that I hope makes people who have believed in me proud.
Yeah. And of course, you know, you go to law school. Where did you go to law school?
The University of Alabama.
And so you, of course, and started your law practice, or did you go to work in government?
My first job was with Fob James. Pretty good first job.
Fob James, it's time for a new beginning with Fob James. Hey, with Troy King, it's time.
Nobody told me if I came here I was going to get my own jingle.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, well that was what he. Listen, everybody when he first ran for governor, you know, everybody knew who he was. Former All-American football player at Auburn, and owned all these weightlifting equipment, and was a millionaire and all that. But let me tell you, at one time there wasn't a fight between who were the two that were fighting against him.
Well, it was the three Bs.
The three Bs.
It was Brewer, Baxley, and Beasley.
That's right.
And they were supposed to win.
That's right.
In fact, if you go to the Capitol and you look at Fob James's portrait in the Capitol, do you know?
Oh yeah, I know.
You know what he's holding?
Yeah.
He's holding this big giant tree root.
Uh-huh.
And I asked Governor James one day, what is that? And he said, well, when I ran for governor in 1978, I was running against Albert Brewer, who had been governor.
Great guy.
Jerry Beasley, who was lieutenant governor.
Great guy.
Bill Baxley, who was attorney general.
Great guy.
And he said they were the three Bs, and they were supposed to win. And he said, I got a yellow school bus.
That's right.
And I traveled all over the state, and I said, we're going to teach kids again reading, writing, and arithmetic.
And he did it with his sleeves rolled up
and his tie
loose. And he stood there, and he stood outside of the state office building. That's where everybody was worked back then. And every afternoon, and handed out
hand cards
and all that. But and he'd shake your hand real strong, and he'd look at you. He was really an arrogant guy. As far as hey, I'm tougher, and and I'm smarter, and whatever. You know what his goal? It was so plain and simple: reading, writing, and arithmetic. How many times you heard him?
That's right. That's right.
That was his goal. If we educate our people, we'll be a much better.
He said
a much better way of life.
Well, sure. And he said the reason that he ran for governor is he owned a company called Diversified Products, where they invented the concrete-filled dumbbells.
That's right. Exactly.
And he said I would have all these people who would come apply for a job. They couldn't pass a math test.
Yeah.
They couldn't write. And I just decided that if Alabama is ever going to move forward, our people got to be educated.
Sure.
And so he told me, he said, so in my portrait, when I started running, everybody said, you cannot possibly beat the three most famous names in Alabama politics.
Yeah.
And he said, they would come up to me and they would say, well, Governor, have you seen the polls? You're losing. And he said, I carried this root around, and I would get it out and I would hold it up and I would say, they tell me I'm losing in the polls, but the only poll that matters is the grassroots poll on election day.
That's right.
And he said that that was a big piece of grass if that's the route. But
right.
The,
and I'm not going to say he was the greatest governor, but I tell you what, he was for the things that meant the most to an individual, and that was to be educated and to make sure that all the kids had a good education and got a good start. You know?
And he loved Alabama.
Yeah.
Or loves, he's not dead. He loves Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
And worked hard. And I was very fortunate to get
Exactly.
to work under him and to learn about government in Alabama and how to serve from somebody like Five James. I've been very blessed in my career.
No question about it. And you came through it during a time, Jerry Beasley, best thing ever happened to him was for him not to become governor. He became one of the wealthiest men in America.
Well, that's what he tells me, and one of the best lawyers.
That's right.
And he told me that when I lost. He said this is the best day of your life.
That's right.
And I'll be honest, I did not ever think I would go back into politics, but I watched what went on, and a state that you and I invested sweat and blood in our careers to make better.
Yeah.
Became an embarrassment.
Yeah.
We had a governor who made a mockery out of public service. I remember being a little boy when I got interested in politics. And my dad would turn on the news at night and he'd point at the TV. And he'd say, "Son, that's the governor of Alabama right there. And if you work hard and you study hard and you apply yourself, you can grow up and be just like him." And I left office and I started thinking about that. And there was a long time in Alabama when I wondered how many parents in their right mind would say, "I want my children to grow up and be like the governor." None.
Yeah.
None. Because what he was doing was not acceptable in public office, and it wasn't acceptable in the private sector. And it was outrageous. And you turn on the news at night, and we're the butt of all the jokes.
You're talking about Big Jim, is that right?
No, I'm talking about Robert Bentley.
Robert Bentley.
Yeah, don't. You're gonna get sued by Big Jim's family for defaming him.
No. Let me just say this. He did some things that embarrassed him and embarrassed the public, but at the same time, he was very, very effective. But of course, who would have thought that Robert Bentley would have been that way?
Not me.
Because when he entered government, he had a clean bill.
He didn't know one person.
In fact, that's how he became governor. Was that guy right there is honest? That guy right there, you know what I'm saying? He had a great reputation,
and he didn't owe anybody anything because nobody thought he could win.
That's right.
So none of the big mules, none of the people that give money and nobody gave him any money. Nobody gave him a chance. He wins. Could have transformed Alabama, maybe for the first governor in I don't know how long, that had nobody that he was beholden to, and he came in and went crazy.
Yeah, exactly right. Back
I personally never even heard of him, and then they were saying he was Bear Bryant's dermatologist. That's the only thing I need.
Bear Bryant's dermatologist. Well, let me just say this: he was a very successful dermatologist.
He was.
That's probably what he should have stayed and doing. But I think he still practices medicine. I think,
Well, I think he had.
Absolutely.
I think after his divorce, he had to go back and practice medicine again.
Exactly. And you went through a bunch of politicians, and one of them, of course, was governor, and back then as a Democrat, and he I reckon he's very similar to you. Was a lawyer, and of course ran into some hard times and ended up going to prison. But what was it?
Governor Siegelman.
And let me just say this: you can say whatever you want about Siegelman, but without Siegelman, we wouldn't have got Mercedes.
Well,
he could understand, and a lot of people said, "We're not going to give them this. We're not going to give them that." Well, Alabama gave Mercedes a plant, and it has reaped benefits that very few people.
Well, I don't know that I would say we gave them anything. I would say we traded.
Exactly.
We gave them some benefits of incentives.
Exactly.
And they gave us an international reputation as a good place to do business.
Yeah.
It was a good trade.
Exactly right.
Yeah, the rest is history now with Honda. And,
oh yeah, exactly. We would have not gotten those plants if Mercedes had not been successful. reason I said that, I worked quite a bit on that myself, and I saw these guys, and I saw, but you had to have a governor that understood business and could see that, you know, being a benefit for the state of Alabama, and boy, what a great benefit it's been.
Well, it's made Alabama the Detroit of the South.
Yeah.
You know, we're a destination point. We're competitive. Anytime there's a big international company that wants to relocate, Alabama's always in the running. And I believe it has less to do with incentives, and it has more to do with the nature and quality of the people who live here.
Mm-hmm.
I think people come here and they find people who are hardworking, who are honest, who will give you 2 days' work for a day's pay, and it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
You can't beat the people of Alabama.
You might be now, when you, as a 10-year-old, could you distinguish between a Republican and a Democrat?
Well,
you know, Elba and Coffee County, I'm sure, was a huge Democratic county, and that turned completely its allegiances toward the Republican Party.
It's flipped.
Exactly,
it's flipped.
like every other county probably.
That's right. Well, I don't know when I was 10 years old if I could have told you I'm a Republican. I could have told you I'm for Ronald Reagan.
That's right.
But I didn't.
Goldwater, you didn't get.
I wasn't born in Goldwater.
I know, but are you familiar with how that
Well, that's
went?
when Jim Martin went to Congress.
Boy, they had more young people wanting Goldwater than anything. That was a great, you know, he scared people to death. You know, he scared people to death, but all the young people were for him, you know.
Well, he was Ronald Reagan's John the Baptist.
That's right.
You know, what Ronald Reagan came 20 years later and represented and stood for, Barry Goldwater started, and of course,
exactly.
Ronald Reagan became very, very famous.
If you want to call well, you know, Eisenhower was a Republican, wasn't he?
He was.
But you know, Goldwater was a strong Republican. You know,
he was the father, I think,
Yeah.
of the modern Republican Party, and you know, Reagan spoke at his convention, if I remember right, and gave just an electrifying speech and kind of took the national stage that year. But you know, I've always known I was a conservative, and I've always been a Republican. I've never voted for a Democrat. I've never given money to a Democrat. I've just been a Republican, and it's weird that I'm in a Republican primary runoff, and I'm running against a Democrat.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. A good friend of mine called me on the phone the other day, and we were talking about something else, and one thing led to another. His name is Merle Shirley.
Oh, my goodness.
I've
known Merle Shirley my whole life.
Well, me too. I knew him when he lived in Greenville even, you know, but he had a cousin that the Shirleys here in Troy were his cousins, and he used to come over, but he and I have been friends a long time, played football against each other, and of course he went on to Auburn and had a very successful law practice, but he speaks very highly of you.
They're old friends. They're old friends. I love new friends, but old friends are still best.
And of course, I've been very impressed with Sonny. You know,
Sonny Reagan.
Sonny Reagan's been on this show.
Sonny is impressive.
Very impressed with him, and of course, you know, a young man lost that election, but he is an impressive young man that ran against him.
I haven't met him. Sonny, of course, worked for me.
Okay.
When I was Attorney General, Sonny was a prosecutor in the Violent Crimes Division.
Okay.
I don't know his opponent, so this is not a comment on his opponent.
Yeah.
So I'm not. What I can say is, you could not have found anybody any better than Sonny.
Well, I have really been impressed with him. In fact, he and I got in the car and rode around, and I feel like I've known him. He's that type guy, you know, and I think he's going to do a great job.
He's going to be a great judge.
All right, let's go back, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But all right, you go to law school, and did you actually go start practicing law, or did you go to work in government?
Went to work for Governor James.
Yes.
And had just a great opportunity there. I was started as his assistant legal advisor. Then I became his deputy legal advisor, and then for a little bit of time I was his chief of staff.
Now he's hard nosed too. Now let me tell you. I mean, you know, you think there's been some guys that were tough. You know, Wallace was tough, but nobody was tougher than Bob James when he got down to it. I mean, he was hard nosed.
Well, he was hard nosed, and you asked me the other day, or you asked me a minute ago about sort of political heroes of mine.
Yeah.
I would put Fob James in that category.
Sure.
And what I learned from Fob James is that there's no dishonor in losing an honorable fight. In other words, if what you're fighting for matters enough, you shouldn't not fight for it because you're going to lose.
Yeah.
You should still fight because it's worth fighting
Yeah.
for. And Governor James was that way. Governor James would find an issue, find something that was important, and he just wouldn't back down.
No question.
Like
Yeah.
taxes. I'm not raising taxes.
But see, he was the businessman, and he was the businessman's governor.
I remember when he said that government should be run like a Waffle House. Do you remember that?
Exactly right. You know, he might be watching us. He's got a place over here in Crenshaw
In
County,
Rutledge.
you know. And of course, you know, I tell you another thing. He was a very godly man too, and his wife was one of the
Bobby
was a wonderful person. You know.
Well, still is. They were great mentors to me. They gave me great opportunities. When Governor James lost to Don Siegelman, I went to work for Bill Pryor in the Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
Ran for Secretary of State in 2002. Had a wonderful time. In fact, our friend Steve Flowers talked about running for Secretary of State that year.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't end up running, but I got to know Steve really well then. He's a great friend of mine.
You know what I told Steve, and of course Steve's a very
Can you
good
say it
friend
on
of
the
mine.
air?
Well, let me tell you, he's been on this show many, many times, but a very good friend of mine. He grew up. I was a little older than he was, but I coached him and whatever, you know. But the thing, Steve always he put up a billboard between Montgomery and
where he had his hand out.
Exactly. He put up a billboard between Montgomery
and
that's right, in Clinton, and it stayed up over and over and over. I told him, I said, nobody has gotten more political favors than that sign right there does for you. You know, just think how long he was there for all those years.
He got a great...
Steve Flowers, it got in everybody's head. So statewide, that name Steve Flowers, and that's the key. Now.
Well,
and we're going to talk about that in a minute, is that name recognition.
Well, of course, he still writes in papers
exactly.
all over the state, and is looked to as, to me, he sort of became Bob Ingram's successor
exactly.
as the dean of political commentators.
That's right.
Bob Ingram is somebody else who had a
man.
great impact on me. I met him when I was in college. Of course, he had been the political commentator on WSFA for years.
That's right.
And he wrote a book. You know, his columns. He always ended his commentaries by saying, "And that's the way I see it."
Yeah.
Right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And so he wrote a book where he took a lot of those commentaries and he recompiled them. They were really political stories,
exactly.
not topical things. And the name of it was "That's the Way We See It." I was working at Gafers. I was a stock boy in high school.
We're finding out this is your life.
I know. Probably people tuning off, but I was a stock boy at Gafers. And Bob Ingram and Roger Siskey, who was the president of Gafers, were neighbors and friends. So Gafers bought boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of his books, and he would come and sign autographs. And whenever he came to sign autographs, they would always assign me to set up his table, get his books, go get his lunch, just check on him through the day. So he and I really got to be good friends.
So you were involved in politics even when you were working for Gafers.
That's right, on company time. And we got to be just great friends.
Yeah.
And we were
man to know.
And we were friends until he died. And his son Reagan is a good friend.
We
of
hired
mine.
his daughter worked with us at ADECA for a while, and I was very. He used to come over, and that's how I got to know him.
Every time I ever went to eat with him, he always wanted to go to the Sahara.
Oh yeah.
Or,
that's where Coach. That's where George Wallace wanted to go too.
I know.
Wasn't that a great restaurant?
It was good, and we always we went there to have crab claws. We always went to the Sahara, and I learned so much. He knew so much about politics, but after he
was smart.
When he got sick, I think I'm right that Steve started writing some of his columns because his health was bad, and there were weeks when when he was sick and not able to write, and so he was just kind of filling in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when he died, there was this huge void that was left behind.
Well, I can remember just hearing him on TV. He was the kind of guy you could believe in. He would have been a good politician himself. You know, people would have voted for him because he just had the common decency. You know what I mean?
I don't know if they would have voted for him because he'd have told them what he thought.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times people don't want to hear what you really think.
But all right, so you're at Gayford's, and then you go to law school, and what happens?
Well, went to work for FOB. Then I went to work for Bill Pryor. Ran for Secretary of State. I didn't win.
And Pryor was a hero at one time, but out of Mobile, and there was a bunch of attorneys that came out of Mobile.
Well, sure, Don Siegelman, Charlie Graddick.
That's right.
A lot of big political names.
That's right, and you're exactly right.
In running for Secretary of State, I got to know a guy who was running for governor named Bob Riley.
Exactly.
And I would see him when we were traveling, and so when I lost the primary and he won the primary, in fact, I'll tell you sort of a funny story. I was running that year for Secretary of State. It was me, Dean Young, who worked for Roy Moore, and now is in charge of or behind the work to pass the Ten Commandments Amendment in November, and a guy named Dave Thomas. Well, Dave Thomas and Dean Young end up in the runoff. So on election night, this AP reporter came up and he said, you know, you seem like you know all the Republicans. How'd you lose? And I said, well, there's something I didn't really expect. I never thought about the fact that Dave Thomas, at that time, was on TV all the time because he was the founder of Wendy's.
Yeah, that's right. Now, exactly. I was saying that's...
Right.
This wasn't the same guy, though, but people thought that, though.
And I said, I think that he got elected because he's got the same name as the guy that owns Wendy's. And I said, but if I ever run again, I know the solution to this problem.
Yeah.
And the guy said, well, what is it? And I said, I'm going to change my name to Burger.
Now, who actually won that election?
Nancy Worley, the Democrat won that year.
And, of course, after that, what did you do?
Well, so Bob Riley called me, and he said, I've got all these Republican groups that want me to come and speak at their monthly meetings, but I'm running the general election now, and I can't go to all these Republican meetings. I need to be talking to chambers of commerce and Rotary Club, the general election audience.
Yeah. It's one of the smartest things you've ever done, was do that.
Well, so he said, but I can't make the Republicans mad, and they love you.
Yeah.
Will you go speak to the Republicans and let me go speak to the chambers of commerce? So that's what I did, and so I spent a bunch of time, and then you'll remember that election was very controversial. He was running against Don Siegelman.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was very, very close. They didn't call it on election night, and then Siegelman says that they changed a bunch of ballots in Baldwin County, and he ended up losing. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
But Governor Riley ultimately won, and Governor Riley appointed me as his legal advisor.
Exactly.
So I was his legal advisor for 2 years, and then...
But back to what I said, doing that for Riley, he turned around and brought you into the fold.
That's right.
I mean, you were a bright star and went out and gained a lot of recognition, and then he brings you into the fold.
It was great. And
it's happened to so many people.
Well, and then he appointed me Attorney General.
Yeah.
That's how I became Attorney General, is Bill Pryor got appointed by the President to the 11th Circuit. And so then he appointed me to replace Bill Pryor as the Attorney General. And I got to do that job. Then I got elected and had a great time.
Ladies and gentlemen, how many times, what now? He's got to run. He's got to run in a few minutes. But how many times can you say it's who you know?
Well,
how many times have you told somebody?
It's who you know and what you do when you get to know them.
Exactly, yeah.
It only goes so far.
Yeah.
But look, I know they're telling me that we got to wrap up.
Well, that's up to you now, because I've got you for 30 more minutes if you want to stay.
I don't even know what time it is.
I've got it right a little bit before 8.
Well, let's stay a little bit.
All right, good.
I'm having a ball.
I am too.
I'm having a great time.
And we'll run this again at 1:30 too, our show, and I want you to pass the word. Of course, Troy King who is a candidate for Attorney General. Now, you've been Attorney General before.
6 years.
I would think that you've got the experience for the job. All right, let's move on then, though.
So Governor Riley appointed me Attorney General. One of the greatest honors of my life was to work directly for the people of Alabama. And we did so many things that were good.
Yeah.
We passed the toughest sex offender law in America. I've got kids. Paige and I, at that time, our kids were little.
Yeah.
But there's nothing any more important to us as parents than for our kids to be safe.
You're exactly right.
So we didn't just pass a sex offender law. We passed the toughest sex offender law in America. I'll tell you a funny story about this. I hate to just keep telling you stories,
No,
but
I like it.
I'm having a great time.
I think people are enjoying this. I really do.
So you'll know this because you were in Montgomery. There's probably 1,000 bills that get introduced in the legislature. So if you want to get your bill passed, you got to find some hook, something that causes people to pay particular attention to it. So when we wrote the sex offender law, part of it was a GPS tracking device that we could put on sex offenders.
Exactly.
So I had this great idea to have a GPS tracking device, and I was going to put it on and wear it until they passed my bill. Thank goodness I don't still have it on.
Oh, man.
And you could go to the Attorney General's website, and you could see little pink footprints all over the state. It would show you where I had been. So I put on this tracking device, and I was going to go over to Callaway Gardens and give a speech. Paige, my wife, my kids, everybody was going to go with me. I gave my speech on Friday night, so on Saturday morning, Paige came walking out, and she said, well, the kids want to go to the pool. Is that okay? And I said, well, that'll be great. So I go, put on my swimsuit, my T-shirt, come walking out in my GPS tracking device, and Paige said, okay, you just need to go right back in there and take that thing off. And I said, well, it doesn't come off. That's the point of it. It doesn't come off. So I can't go take it off. But I said, who's gonna notice? So we pull up at the pool. They're full of families. We get out of the car. Between the time we get to the car and we get to the gate, every family got out of the pool and left.
Oh, man.
And I knew that day. I knew that day that law was going to protect families.
Exactly.
It was going to make people safe because we were going to know where they were, and we were going to warn people that there was a threat.
Exactly right.
So that's one of the proudest things that I did. But we did a lot of good things. I have the record for the largest conviction against a child pornographer in Alabama, because I believe it's wrong to take the innocence of a child.
Oh, man.
Whether you do it physically or with a camera, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And the message that we wanted to send when I was Attorney General is not our children, not in this state, not on my watch.
Yeah.
That's what we told everybody in my office.
Well, let me just say this. You know, I told you that Bob James was hard-nosed. You're hard-nosed. And, hey, and the Attorney General's supposed to be hard-nosed. You got to be tough.
It comes with a job.
You're the top legal man in the state of Alabama.
Well, the top law enforcement.
Yeah, exactly.
And we went after people that broke the law. We sued 72 drug companies that were stealing from Medicaid. I don't think just because you're a big company, you ought to be able to steal from the children and from the elderly in Alabama. We sued BP when they polluted the Gulf Coast.
Exactly. You were involved in that quite a bit.
Governor Riley had negotiated a settlement of $144 million when I sued him. And he called me and he said, Troy, you have to dismiss your lawsuit. And I said, I'm not going to dismiss it. We are the first state to file suit. That's not enough money, and I'm not dismissing it. He said, well, I'm going to dismiss it. And I said, look, you're my friend, but I don't think you can dismiss my lawsuit. We can go to court and you can try, but I don't think you can. And I'm so pleased that lawsuit ended up generating $2.5 billion.
You got so much more money. No question about it.
20
I remember when that happened. That has been a huge benefit to the state of Alabama.
And to the Gulf Coast, where we had to rebuild. So,
and a lot of individuals that were hurt.
I'm very, very proud of what we did. Mm-hmm. And this campaign...
BP don't want none of you, do
they? I don't get a Christmas card.
You went straight up with some of the best lawyers in the country, didn't you?
We did, and
you didn't back away, did you?
And we won.
That's right. That is amazing.
And
what did Governor Riley say to you after that?
Well, Governor Riley wasn't really speaking to me at that point.
Uh-huh.
So not very much. He did not agree with the decision. But It was the right decision.
Why wasn't he for that decision? Because so many people lost a lot.
They were going to balance the budget with the $144 million.
I got you.
It's what we've done in Alabama for generations. We make short-sighted, short-term decisions, and we pay the price in the long term. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, that didn't turn out that way. Yeah. Alabama got treated much fairer.
Now, let me ask you this: as Attorney General, will you actually? Will it be your people, or will you actually take charge and be the lead man in suits and so forth?
Well, as the Attorney General, you are the lead man.
Yeah,
there's obviously a lot of good lawyers.
Go to court yourself?
I did go to court. Periodically. It's very hard. Cases change, and it's very hard to do everything the Attorney General's got to do, and be in court.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a death penalty case in Mobile, and I went down and made the sentencing argument for Jeremy Jones, who was sentenced. He's on death row today.
Yeah.
So it's important for the Attorney General to set the policy and set the example. I'm very, very proud of the work that we did. Mm-hmm. And this campaign has been about taking Alabama back, because I don't think I'm the only person who is fed up with what's been going on in this state. And we got the chance this election to stop the corruption, take Alabama back from it, take Alabama back from out-of-control crime. When I left office, Alabama's crime was at a 30-year low. It's at a 20-year high now, 8 years later.
Let me tell you one of the things that I read the Troy paper. This is one of the oldest daily papers in the state.
Right.
All right, and it has the arrest for they have a list. They put it in there every week. And it's the same names over and over and over and over. We've got these people that are continuing to violate the law need to be put away.
Well, I think that we're not running prisons, we're running a hotel.
Yeah.
People check in and then they check right back out.
Exactly.
And we have to understand that when we give a criminal a pass and we let them out of prison, usually we're not creating an empty prison bed. We're usually creating an empty victim's bed, because they're going to hurt or kill somebody, and then they're going back to prison. And we're making a terrible... Look, if we don't have enough prison space for the dangerous criminals, the answer is not more early releases. The answer is more prisons.
I want to ask you something point blank.
All right.
What do you think of Donald Trump and his views on crime and drugs?
I like his views. I think it is time that we begin to punish the people who are really responsible for the drug epidemic.
I mean, there's some real bad folks that are here, not as citizens of our country.
Well, look, coming to America ought to be a reward, and there ought to be an orderly process to access that. Mm-hmm. It should not be you come here, you stay here long enough, and you get to stay forever. Mm-hmm. It reminds me a little bit, if I robbed the bank today, and I took all that money, and I lived for 20 years with a really good standard of living, and then I got caught. Nobody in their right mind would say, well, let's don't send him to jail. He's gotten really used to that, to living on that money. Just let him keep it. He's had it 20 years. They would say, you're going to prison, and the money is going back to the bank. I'm very sympathetic to the fact that people have broken the law and come here. But it's the law. And the law has to mean something. Mm-hmm. And just because you've been here a long time doesn't mean you have the right to stay.
Yeah. What are your goals? What are the things that you really want to do that's not been done? Where are our shortfalls as far as the crime?
Well, we need to end the corruption in Montgomery, and we do that by using the law to punish people that betray us, and that's what Robert Bentley did.
Yeah.
He did it with all of his shenanigans, and he did it when he cut a crooked deal with the Attorney General. When he said to the Attorney General, if you will let me off the hook, I will appoint you Attorney General. That's not how you end corruption, that's how you enable it. That was the crookedest deal ever. Mm-hmm. So we've got to stop that kind of deal making, and we've got to stop these politicians who think that Montgomery is their personal playpen and they can do whatever they want there.
Well, I don't know which governor did this. You know, the lobbying used to be huge. I mean, huge. You could go to the local places in the afternoon after work, and it was just constant entertaining and whatever. All right, so that was a big thing. What's your feeling about that?
Well, I think that having a ban for a certain amount of time on people leaving the legislature and then using their influence and relationships to lobby against the interest of the people of Alabama is a good thing.
Yeah.
Look, the people in office in Alabama too often get to Montgomery and think that the people of Alabama work for them. It's the other way around. They work for us.
Yeah.
They ought to answer to us. They ought to be loyal to us. They ought to do what we want, not what... I mean, Steve Marshall has taken $500,000 from the BCA. That's 20 times what they've given to the governor. That has never happened. Yeah. He's taken $700,000 from the Republican Attorney General Association. They're not even in Alabama. What on earth do you think that they're buying? I filed an ethics complaint against him. Every penny of that $700,000 is illegal. It's a PAC-to-PAC transfer.
What is he doing with this money?
Spending it to get elected.
Yeah.
Buying TV commercials to lie about Republicans. I mean, here's a guy who's a Democrat running and pretending to be a Republican and using all this illegal money to destroy the reputation of real Republicans.
All right, but now the election is Tuesday.
That's right.
And we can do something about it. Is that right?
That's exactly right. We can go vote for a real Republican with real ideas and real solutions to the problem. Look, a guy who has taken $400,000 2 days ago, and I filed an ethics complaint because every penny of it is illegal. His answer was not what Luther Strange did when he took $50,000 of illegal money from these people. He sent it back. Steve Marshall took $300 more. This guy believes, I said yesterday at a press conference, Alabama may not be for sale, but Steve Marshall is sold.
What happens to this money that's left over?
Well, there's not going to be any left over. He's going to spend every penny trying to destroy my reputation. Yeah. But I believe the people of Alabama are not going to vote for a Democrat, even if he pretends to be a Republican. And that's what we have to make sure people know. And I hope people that are watching us will call their neighbors when they get up off the floor and realize that Steve Marshall's a Democrat and they didn't know it. I hope they'll call their friends, their neighbors. They'll tell people at church on Sunday. If we want to take Alabama back, we got to start by taking it back from the guy who is breaking the law. How on earth can the Attorney General clean up the mess in Montgomery? He took a crooked deal to get to Montgomery, and now he's breaking the law to keep the job. What do you think these people in Washington want so badly that they will give him $700,000? I don't know what it is, but it's not good for me and you.
But is this Republican money or is this Democratic money?
Well, it's corporate money. It's big companies that want to buy the Attorney General. Somebody asked me yesterday, they said, well, it's the Republican Attorney General Association. And I said, look, you can call yourself whatever you want. Steve Marshall calls himself a Republican, but he's a Democrat. These people are not. This is not Republican Attorney General work. This is an organization. Donald Trump calls it the swamp. This is nothing but the swamp in Washington, D.C., who thinks they have the right to buy the Attorney General of Alabama and have him do Lord knows what to us.
Yeah. Of course, Troy King, ladies and gentlemen, a candidate for Attorney General for the state of Alabama, and of course that election is on Tuesday coming up. What would be the first thing you'd want to do if you're elected or when you're elected?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an overhaul of the office. We're going to put a focus back on the mission of that office, which is to prosecute violent criminals. I don't even think they have a violent crimes trial division anymore that goes out across the state and has trials.
Yes.
I had one of the best in the state, and we convicted hard cases.
Yeah.
And that needs to be done again. That's how we stop the violent crime. But, of course, no change is going to happen unless people vote on Tuesday and they vote for change. I hope people will go vote for the real Republican. I've been a Republican my whole life. I was a Republican before I knew I was a Republican.
And you're a man you are a man that's been there and done that.
I have been there and done that. I hadn't done
when you were there before, what did you feel like you accomplished more than anything?
Well, my proudest accomplishment was the passing the toughest sex offender law.
Exactly. Let's go back to our phones. You're on Today in L.A. How you doing?
Hey, I was just calling back in.
Mike Amos calling in.
Hey, Mike.
Troy King. Mike, in Birmingham, do you see a lot of Troy King signs?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I've got a lot of friends that are Republicans and a lot of friends that are voting for Troy. So hopefully you'll pull it through.
Well, please tell them that I said to personally thank you for that. This is going to be a close election.
Yeah.
10% vote, maybe 200,000 people. Every vote matters. Everybody needs to turn out and vote. And I hope they will help us educate voters that there is a Republican and a Democrat on the Republican ballot.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy to say.
Isn't that amazing?
It sounds crazy. And I saw Steve Marshall's got a commercial now where he says, I'm a liberal Democrat.
Yeah. But but now it really doesn't matter because there's a crossover, vote Tuesday. Is that right?
No. If you vote in the Democrat primary, you can't vote Tuesday in the Republican runoff.
Wait a minute. I did not realize that.
Your vote, you can, if you voted in the Democrat primary on June 5th.
Exactly. Well, that's right.
You can't vote on the July. Now you can vote in November.
That's right, in November.
That's right.
Excuse me. I should have known better. We're still in the Republican race.
That's right.
Now.
And so
he is a so-called.
We call him a rhino, Republican in name only.
Of course, I think to win an election, in Alabama, I think you need to be Republican.
Well, he's figured that out, and so he's calling himself a Republican.
But
let me tell you, anybody with an Obama bumper sticker on their car in 2008 is not an Alabama Republican 10 years later. I don't care what they say.
Exactly right. Now, statewide, how do you feel?
I feel good. I've been traveling all over Alabama.
You're well known. You do have the name recognition. I couldn't even tell you his name.
Good. I'm not going to remind you. Hey, I am going to have to. All
right. Well, listen, we've really enjoyed it.
Hope you'll vote for me.
Hey, well, let me tell you this. Anything that was said today is not necessarily I got to say this, the actual opinion of this station, but we let you give your opinion.
It's my opinion.
And of course, that's the law.
And I stand behind it.
And again, I think, let me just say one thing before you go. Bob James is a guy that really, that you admired the most, as a young man. Like I said earlier, was hard-nosed. Well, let me tell you this. I would want my Attorney General, who was representing me, to be hard-nosed.
I agree with you. It's a hard job.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
We'll be back with more of Today in L.A. after this.
At the Piggly Wiggly, we proudly support our local farmers and bring you the best they have to offer, all at cost plus 10%. When you shop local, you reinvest in your community. Remember, buy local, shop local. Piggly Wiggly, local since forever.
Troy Cable Security Wi-Fi doorbell camera allows you to answer the door from your smartphone when you are at home, at work, or on the go. When a visitor presses the button, Troy Cable Security sends a live video feed to your smartphone so you can see, hear, and speak to the person at your door. With the doorbell camera, you can have your porch light turn on automatically when it detects motion at night to create the appearance that someone is at home. You can view video clips so you can always know who stopped by when you were out. Troy Cable Security. You love them, protect them.
Have you seen an increase in your insurance premiums or significant change in your insurance coverage? Let Sandbeck Insurance offer you a better plan to suit your business or personal needs. Sandbeck Insurance offers many lines of insurance, whether it's home, farm, or auto insurance, work comp, business, or health and life policies. Sandbeck is here for you. Call or visit our Troy, Enterprise, or Andalusia office today. Sandbeck Insurance, where we take pride in taking care of your insurance.
Here's some Napa know-how for you. Your local Napa Auto Parts store in Troy is under new ownership with an all-new fully stocked store. Big deal, you say? Big deal, we say. Like the ownership, the store has a new look, too. We're still delivering the same Napa quality and know-how, but we've increased our inventory and are committed to helping you find the parts you need when you need them. So come check us out. We've got the right part at the right price at the right time. Know-how, Napa.
Life is hectic enough without worrying if your lights will stay on or if there's hot water for your child's bath. So count on natural gas to keep the energy flowing, even when the weather is unpredictable. Natural gas is always there to keep your home warm. Shower.
You know, he's the guy that tore his elbow, tendons in his elbows last year, and he's the one that came back. And remember that big sack they had against Georgia when they were in overtime?
Yeah. Back to our show, brought to you by Pike County Ford on the bypass right here in Troy, and of course under new ownership, and they're dealing, believe you me, at Pike County Ford. I want to mention Horn Beverage, my good friends Donna Horn and Booty Bruce and all the great folks that represent Horn Beverage right here in Troy, Alabama. And of course they do so many things for so many good causes in our community. I want to mention Alabama Real Estate Connection.
I grew up with Angie Horn, or Angela Horn, and I had no idea she'd be a big-time campaign manager.
Well, let me tell you this. It seems like everybody she works for is winning, and that's good. She got a good record. I tell you, let me just say this about Troy King. He is tough, and you want somebody that's going to be tough to be your Attorney General. And I want to mention first, Cahaba Bank is a new bank in Troy, Alabama, in Pike County. And I want to say hello to Chris McVeigh, Associate Vice President of Cahaba Bank. And, of course, they're building a new facility right next to Publix on just off Highway 231, a beautiful new bank. And, of course, the president and CEO is Grady Kaups. And Grady's been in the banking business a long time. And
yeah, Grady's a good guy. I know him.
No question about it. And, of course, they're doing business now, but officially the bank, they expect the bank to be open by the fall. Their new location.
A lot of property out there, man. That's going to be a lot of development over the years, I'd imagine.
I think it will, too. And, of course, Cahaba Bank is a new bank in our area. And, of course, they actually have been doing business for the last couple of years, but they now are building a new facility. Goshen. They said, ladies and gentlemen, the finest cheerleading group in the country, the Goshen Eagles, won it all at the cheerleader camp recently. The Goshen Eagles cheerleading squad competed at the UCA camp at Troy University over the weekend and left with all kinds of trophies and honors. In fact, numerous awards on both the varsity and the junior varsity level. After a brief break at the beginning of the summer, the Eagles, led by Coach Angie Thomas and Sheila Ballard, went to work, and man, they brought home all the awards from the Troy cheerleader camp. So congratulations. Good picture of all of those girls in the paper today. So congratulations. Troy, Mike, how about this? It's been 3 weeks since Troy AAA Americans played their last meaningful game. They knocked off Enterprise to win the district championship. But after a lengthy wait, the players are ready now to return to the field. And ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a big tournament. The Troy Stingray rolled through the district play, although Troy went undefeated their cleanup game before heading to Eufaula for the state tournament. So the only team that is going to beat them is themselves, said David Nelson, their coach. And boy, what a great job he does. And Troy, there were times during the district that Troy felt like they almost let some things slip away, but they didn't. We have a lot of games where we threw strikes and played defense, and so that's coming up very soon. The state tournament coming up. In fact, it will be this Saturday against Dothan Americans at 8 p.m. So that is going to be a big tournament. And I think I want to say, well, it doesn't really say exactly where they're going to be playing that tournament. So I'll get more information from that hopefully by tomorrow. But of course, we've also got some big news out of Pike Liberal Arts, is that the National Association of athletic private schools. Division III national champions are the Pike Liberal Arts Patriots. So another great honor goes to their baseball team. National Athletic Association of Private Schools Division III national champions are the Pike Liberal Arts Patriots, who won the 3A championship a few weeks ago here in, of course, Pike Liberal Arts located right here in Troy, and more honors each day for this baseball team, Mike. They're really good.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Ponder's got the program at at its highest level, and there's tons of kids throughout the Wiregrass and Pike County and other counties that probably want to come play for him. So
no question, he's a great coach, and
sure he'll continue it.
Exactly.
It's, a lot of really good kids are in that program, and I'm sure they'll win a lot of state championships as long as he's there.
Want to mention a big import sale at Premier Dodge Chrysler Jeep and Ram right here in Troy, and they've got all of their imports, Mike, on sale right now, and starting with 202s all the way to 2007s. So if you want a great deal on a Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, or Ram truck, believe you me, you need to go by Premier Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep.
I tell you, the Ram is a popular truck here in Birmingham. I see a lot of them.
Boy, you really do. They're good-looking trucks, and one of the things.
I tell you what, they really changed their design, and it looks a lot better than the design from like 10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's the case. You're exactly right. It looks good. It's sharp, and it's I think it's very economical.
Yeah, it's pretty friendly at the pump too.
That's what they say, and then of course their list prices on their vehicles are very reasonable. No question about it. I want to mention that Troy Bank and Trust Company welcomes you to their Customer Appreciation Day, which will be this Friday, July the 13th, from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the Goshen Troy Bank and Trust Company branch on Greenville Avenue in Goshen. And that will be hot dogs. Man, hey man, I know where I'm going to eat Friday. Hot dogs and drinks that will be served for Customer Appreciation Day at Troy Bank and Trust Company. And there'll be some giveaway items and so forth. So find your way down to Goshen this weekend or this Friday for that Appreciation Day. And we appreciate them. Mike, of course, I want to congratulate my good little friend Sydney Armstrong, who, very talented young lady, and very young lady that has really achieved a lot of honors out of Charles Simpson High School. She recently won the Troy Rotary Club's Interact Service Above Self Award and scholarship. So congratulations.
I'm sure Neil and Michelle are awfully proud of her.
No question about it. She's been a sharp young lady for as long as I've known her, and of course she'll be going to school at Troy University. I want to remind you also that Piggly Wiggly, located on North 39th Street in Troy, and located on in the Marketplace Shopping Center on the bypass, they've got some great sales going on today. And of course, as always, the messenger tells you about it. Oh boy, listen to this, Mike. T-bone steaks, the family pack, $5.99 a pound. Where are you gonna find a better deal than that?
That's really good.
And I'm gonna go and buy some thick ones. Cut me some thick ones, and I'll take a multi family pack. Assorted cut pork chops, $1.29 a pound. Fried drumsticks and thighs, 88 cents a pound. Boneless chuck roast, $2.99 a pound. And shank portion smoked ham, $1.19 a pound. And of course, anytime you can get bacon, 2 packages for $5. That's 12-ounce packages of Gwaltney bacon, and that's quite a deal. As is the Sunnyland Jumbo Meat Franks, 5 for $5. Man, you can feed a lot of people like that. And of course, a lot of great sales going on today at your local Piggly Wiggly, and their meat market, Mike, is outstanding.
You know, I missed the interview, most of it with Troy King. I mean, that's been one of the more stranger campaigns probably in the history of politics, where the competition, you know, the competitor, you know, Mr. Marshall, you know, the issue, you know, unfortunately, tragic issue with his wife.
What happened?
Well, you know, she, you know, committed suicide, you know, a few weeks ago.
Okay. You know, we didn't talk about that at all.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't imagine how you go through a campaign.
I know it.
Especially, you know, in the situation where he's dealing with the loss of his wife 2 or 3 weeks ago. I know they stopped the campaign for a while on both ends and didn't do anything for a while. But that's one of the stranger campaigns ever to happen in the state of Alabama. I mean, there's been numerous articles about it.
Yeah,
so I was kind of interested in that as well.
Yeah.
But you know, getting back to sports, you know, I mentioned earlier, Terrell Lewis, probably going to be all SEC and All-American first-round draft pick for Alabama, the big defensive end, 6'5", 260 pounds, tears his ACL. Got reported yesterday by Coach Saban. So Alabama, who had horrible issues at linebacker last year as far as injuries, lost their, no doubt about, best pass rusher going into the season.
Me. You know, and why are they doing it? Why are they doing stuff like that?
I mean, it sounds like it was just a freak injury. You know, you can tear an ACL, you know, stepping wrong, you know, or just any kind of weird situation. You know, a lot of ACLs are non-contact. So horrible injury for Alabama. Hopefully somebody can step in and find a way to, you know, to fill his spot. But he is a freakish athlete. Like I said, 6'5", 260 pounds. And, you know, I don't know if it's a situation where, you know, they got some freshmen coming in that can fill that role or not. But that was horrible for Alabama last year, losing a lot of linebackers.
No question about it. Called one of the most dynamic players in Troy University history and Sun Belt Conference football history, Jarrell Jernigan took the Eufaula Tigers and the Troy Trojans to great heights and even helped the New York Giants win a Super Bowl during his injury-shortened NFL career. Jernigan, the class will enter the class of the Wiregrass Hall of Fame this weekend, Mike. And of course, the Wiregrass.
Yeah, well deserved. You know, I mean, he probably, if he could have stayed in the pros for another 5 or 6 years, probably been in the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. You know, he's a guy that was playing quarterback in high school.
Yeah.
Became a great wide receiver and was starting for the Giants when he got hurt. It's really a tragic story that happened to Jarrell, and you know, he just never was the same.
He finished his NFL career with 34 career games played. He had 38 receptions for 391 yards and 2 touchdowns, while rushing 4 times for 61 yards and another touchdown. He also averaged 25 yards a kickoff return.
His
best year was his third season in the NFL, where he had 29 receptions for 329 yards and 2 scores, as well as rushing twice for 57 yards and a touchdown. Boy, I tell you what, in the open field, he was almost untackable.
I remember hearing and reading an article from Eli Manning, and he was talking about how talented he was. You know, I mean, he was
I would love to hear
it. It's really a sad situation. I mean, I'm sure Jarrell, made some decent money, but you know, he was about to go into a contract year, and that's where you really get paid in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I know he's coaching down at Eufaula where he grew up, and coaching with Coach Rigby, and I'm sure he's doing a good job down there. I really hated he was a guy that I think could have played 10 years in the NFL.
I know it. I really did hate it. And, of course, he's now coaching at Eufaula High School, and I'm sure he'll do a great job down there. And
from Eufaula, that, you know, they grew up playing together. Courtney Upshaw's still playing in the league.
Yeah.
From Alabama.
No question about it.
Coach Rigby, that's a lot of excitement down there in Eufaula. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are really pumped up to see what Eufaula football can become under Rigby. I think, you know, their team you'll be seeing winning a state championship here in the next couple of years.
No question about it. Of course, a lot of tournament baseball and softball. I think Troy's, I know their under 6-year-olds have won the state title, and they'll be going to the national championships. And the great team, the softball team, the Bells, will be heading to the World Series in Louisiana and we still got.
Imagine that's going to be awfully hot.
In fact, we've got 3.
Louisiana.
Yeah, we've got 3 teams heading that way. The Dixie Youth AA state title, AUM edged Taylor Rehoboth on Tuesday's games in Dothan. So that tournament is still going on. Want to mention.
So when is Mike Amos going to get out and start interviewing football teams?
I don't know. When they start practicing, I reckon. Want to mention before we go off there. I want to mention that France has beaten Belgium 1-0. I know this is really interesting for you. And now it will be a battle between Sweden and England, I think, for the other
I tell you what, man, don't get me wrong. I know soccer's a real popular sport, but it doesn't mean anything to me. I just can't get into it. I really can't. I probably should, but I just can't get excited about it.
Well, I try to watch it myself a little bit, and but like you said, it's the largest sport in the world, they say.
Yeah, and I mean more,
But all it takes is just a little rubber ball and some guys going around there kicking it, and a net.
All the parents concerned about injuries and concussions with football, and a lot of people say that soccer is going to become the #1 sport.
Russia has gotten a lot of exposure. I've seen some sides of Russia just on the footage of the film that are pretty impressive. They've done a good job on this.
Yeah.
Of course,
it's one of those things where I've got friends that really get into it, and I know there's a lot of different bars and restaurants in Birmingham that have huge events catered around the World Cup. So I mean, it's popular.
This article in the Dothan Eagle on Jarrell Jernigan is one of the largest articles about one individual that I've ever seen.
Well, what it probably comes down to is that guy that was writing the article probably covered him since high school.
Oh, yeah, it is really a big, long article. And at Troy, Jarrell had 8 career 100-yard receiving games. Can you believe that? He had, for 3,218 yards, career yards, 262 career receptions, 5.5 per game, for a career of 5,985 yards of multi-purpose yardage.
I mean, we were there against Georgia when he was a freshman. I mean, he put on a show against Georgia.
Oh yeah. Well, he's
and then the greatest performance he probably ever had was in the bowl game in New Orleans, as far as catching and playing. Wildcat quarterback. Nobody can catch him on the goal line. He's so quick.
One other thing before we go off the air, I want to mention that his pro career, Michael, in the Super Bowl, the 2012 Super Bowl, he had 3 kickoffs for 71 yards, and he made several catches. So he had a lot to do with the Giants winning that Super Bowl.
That was a really special moment in Troy football history. At the end of that game, you had Jarrell Jernigan, O.C. Umenyiora, and you had our kicker.
That's right.
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on our kicker's name, but kicked for years.
Oh, yeah, exactly,
all 3 of those guys.
Lawrence Tynes.
So you had 3 Troy guys on that Super Bowl team.
That was amazing. That was amazing. There's no question about it. Hope you enjoyed our show today, and of course we're going to come back on today at 1:30. Appreciate Troy King coming by and giving his story of his life and his political career. Of course, the vote is this Tuesday, so I'm sure they would like for you to vote for Troy King. Of course, that's what America is made of. This is the Republican runoff is this Tuesday for the Attorney General of the state of Alabama. Hope to see you again tomorrow, bright and early for Today in L.A.